If you are about to list a rental, I need you to hear this. Most landlord horror stories do not start with a bad property. They start with one weak moment in your process. One payment you accepted because you wanted to be flexible. One document you skimmed because it looked professional. One set of keys you handed over because you did not want to feel awkward. And then you spend the next 3 months paying for that one moment. I have been a landlord for almost a decade. I have dealt with fake documents, rent games, fake ISA animals, short pay tricks, tenants trying to pull a fast one with utilities, you name it. And someone tried to run a scam on me again recently. That is what triggered this video. Because if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. So today I am going to break down the most common tenant scams landlords face, how they actually work, and the exact system you can run so you do not get caught off guard. This is not fear content. This is operator content. And by the end, you will have a clean playbook that makes your rentals feel calm again. Let's go. Your credibility anchor. A decade in, still targeted. Hi, I'm Real Estate DAD. Welcome back to Brick by Brick Wealth, where I help aspiring real estate investors become successful with their first rental property. Here is the truth I wish someone drilled into my head when I started. Experience does not make you immune. It just changes the scams you see. The early scams target your naivety. The later scams target your patience. Because scammers are not looking for bad landlords. They're looking for gaps. They want the moment you are tired, or busy, or you have a vacancy that is costing you money, or you just want a smooth move-in. That is why this video works. Not because you memorize scams. It works because you build a system that makes scams hard to run. And everything in this video fits into 5 buckets. Identity and documents, money and payments, occupancy and subletting, habitability leverage, legal timeline leverage. If you can think in those buckets, you stop feeling overwhelmed. You start seeing patterns, the scam map, the 5 buckets that explain everything. Before we go scam by scam, let me show you the map. Bucket 1 is identity and documents. Fake pay stubs, fake W-2s, fake bank statements, fake references, fake background reports. Bucket 2 is money and payments. Bounced checks, fake cashier checks, short pay, overpayment refunds, partial rent traps. Bucket 3 is occupancy and subletting. Unauthorized roommates, surprise families, arbitrage, Airbnb, subletting to people who would never qualify. Bucket 4 is habitability leverage, mold claims, injury claims, sudden emergencies that appear right after a late rent notice. Bucket 5 is legal timeline leverage, tenants exploiting eviction timing, rent control rules, court procedures, even bankruptcy stalls in some areas. Now we go through each bucket, but I am also going to give you the system layer every time. Because the real win is not spotting the scam. The real win is making it impossible to run. Scam 1. Fake employment, fake income, fake everything. This is one of the most common scams right now. On paper, the applicant looks perfect. Stable income, legit-looking pay stubs, employment verification letter, sometimes even a bank statement, and a lot of it is fake. There are services online that will generate pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements, verification letters, all meant to make an unqualified tenant look like a slam dunk. Here is how it usually plays out. They apply. They look like your best applicant. They want to move fast. They pressure you to approve quickly. They ask you to hold the unit. And if you do not verify properly, you approve someone who cannot actually afford the rent. Then the payday excuses start. Then the partial payments start. Then the drama starts. So how do you spot it without becoming paranoid? You look for 3 categories of red flags. Red flags. The math does not make sense. Income too high for the job title. Pay stub numbers that look clean but do not add up. Withholding that looks odd. Dates that do not match the story. If someone says they are an entry-level worker and they are netting huge income with perfect stability, pause. Red flags. Contact info that feels wrong. This is a big one. HR is a random Gmail. Supervisor is only reachable by text. The company has no real online footprint. Or the phone number they provided goes to a personal cell. Red flags. Sloppy edits. Wrong fonts inside the same document. Numbers that are not aligned. Sections that look copy-pasted. But I want to be honest with you. Some fakes are clean. So the real solution is not becoming a document detective. The solution is verifying from sources they do not control. The system layer. Verify without using their information. If you do one thing, do this. Do not call the employer using the phone number on the application. Go online, find the actual office number. Call that number. If it is a big company, call corporate HR. If it is a small company, call the business line listed publicly. And if something still feels off, ask for additional supporting documents. Not because you want to make life hard for good tenants. Because you are protecting the asset. A good tenant understands that. A scammer gets irritated. And that irritation is information. The screening funnel that filters 80% of problems. Before you even schedule showings, you need a pre-screen call. Most landlords lose money because they start the process backward. They show the unit first, then they screen. That is how you get emotionally manipulated in person. Here is the better order. Pre-screen call, then showing, then full application, then verification, then approval, then move in. On the pre-screen call, you are doing two things. Confirm the basics. Move-in date, income, occupants, animals, smoking, background issues, payment method. Then you test their response to boundaries. You say something like, rent is due on the 1st. Move-in money must be verified funds. Utilities must be transferred before keys. Everyone living there must be listed as an occupant. No subletting. A normal applicant says okay. A scammer starts negotiating instantly. They push for exceptions. They push urgency. They test your flexibility. That is why people say screening is the hardest part. That was really frenzied dollar. It is hard when you do it after you already got emotionally invested. So set the rules before you meet. Scam 2. Utilities. Staying in your name. This one drains landlords quietly. Tenant promises they will transfer utilities into their name. Move-in happens. They never transfer. Then you discover you are paying their power, water, gas. And in many places you cannot legally shut off utilities if they are in your name and someone is living there. So you become the utility sponsor for a tenant who is already pushing boundaries. Here are the classic excuse patterns. I have not had time. They are giving me the runaround. I'm waiting for my next paycheck. I called. They said it will take a few weeks. If the transfer is not done, those are not explanations. Those are delays. The system layer. Keys do not move until utilities move. This is simple. No keys until utilities are out of your name. Either the utilities are already transferred, or you call the utility company and verify a transfer start date in the tenant's name. Also, tell the tenant this multiple times before the lease start date. Do not let it become a surprise. Surprises create negotiation. Clear expectations create compliance. Expert add-on. Learn your local utility liability. Some areas allow unpaid water or sewer charges to become a lien attached to the property. That means even if the tenant caused the bill, the property can still get hit depending on local rules. I am not telling you this to scare you. I am telling you to make you dangerous. Know your local policy so you pick the safest utility structure for your area. Scam 3. Hot checks and move-in money tricks. This one is old school, but it still cooks landlords. Tenant shows up with a personal check for the deposit and first month. You take it. You sign the lease. You hand over keys. You deposit the check. It bounces. Now they are living in your house while you argue about money. The red flag is any tenant insisting on a personal check for move-in money. Move-in money needs to be verified. Now I know people argue about payment types. Some people like cashier checks. Some people say cashier checks can be faked. Both sides have real points. So here is the operator rule that beats the debate. The system layer. Keys only after funds are cleared. I do not care what payment method you choose. Do not hand keys over until the funds are cleared and confirmed. If you cannot confirm funds are final, you do not sign, you do not hand keys. If they say they forgot the money, you do not sign. If they say they will bring it tomorrow, you do not sign. You simply say, no problem. We will finish this when the funds are in. That keeps you calm. It also exposes who is trying to pressure you. Scam 4. Short pay, cash, or electronic. This scam is sneaky because it looks like a mistake. Tenant pays cash, but it is short. 940 instead of 1,000. Or they hand you an envelope that is light and say, I must have miscounted. Or they send an electronic payment that is short and say they will send the rest later. Then later never comes. And there is another layer. In some situations, if you accept rent, even partial, it can complicate your enforcement timeline. So you end up stuck chasing small amounts while they play games. The system layer. No cash and exact amount payments. My favorite prevention is simple. No cash payments. Use electronic payments that require exact amounts. No more, no less. If you ever accept cash, count it in front of them. Every time. Yes, it feels awkward. Awkward is cheap. Also, never accept partial rent without clear written documentation that it is partial and what remains due. Do not rely on verbal agreements when money is involved. Scam 5. Fake ISA animals and animal games. This one is hot right now. Tenant signs a lease with no pets. A few months later, you show up and there is a dog. You ask about it. They say, emotional support animal. You cannot charge pet rent. You cannot charge a pet deposit. Sometimes ESAs are legitimate, but scammers use this as a shield because they assume you will back down. Here is the biggest red flag. They do not tell you up front. They tell you after they moved in, because now you are already dealing with possession, conflict, and rules. The system layer. Ask about animals, not pets. During the pre-screen call, I do not ask, do you have pets? I ask, will there be any animals living in the home? And I say this includes animals of any kind. That language matters because scammers love technicalities. Documentation and boundaries without being reckless. You want a clear process. If someone has an assistance animal, handle it through a consistent accommodation process. Do not wing it. Do not argue emotionally. Do not become the person who says something stupid on text that ends up in court. Also put very clear language in the lease about animal-related damage responsibility. Even when animals are permitted as an accommodation, damage is still damage. And one more reality. Nuisance behavior is still a problem in many buildings and neighborhoods. You are allowed to protect the property and the community. You just do it with process, not vibes. Scam 6. I get paid after the first and payday drift. This scam starts as a polite request. I get paid on the 10th. Can I pay then? You want to be understanding. So you say yes. Next month it happens again. Then again. Now rent is no longer rent due on the 1st. Rent becomes rent due whenever my paycheck hits. Then one of those payday payments slips into the next month and suddenly you are collecting rent in arrears. Now you are always behind. They are always behind. And it becomes normal. The system layer. Enforce the lease and require communication. Rent is due on the due date. If you choose to work with someone once, do it in writing, with specific dates, with a clear return to normal next month. And here is the hard rule that saves you. No communication means enforcement starts. A good tenant who hits a rough patch communicates and has a plan. A scammer ghosts you and tries to buy time. So the moment communication stops, your process starts. Late notice. Then whatever the next legal step is in your area. You do not do this because you love conflict. You do it because delays become expensive. Scam 7. Fake mold. Fake injury. Habitability leverage. This one usually shows up at a convenient time. Right after they are late. Right after you send a notice. Right after you get firm. Suddenly they are coughing. Suddenly, they say mold is making them dizzy. Suddenly, they claim an injury and hint at suing. The red flag is timing. But here is the operator posture. Treat it seriously, even if you suspect it is a tactic. Because if you dismiss something real, you lose. So you do three things. The system layer. Write it down, inspect it fast, document everything. 1. Move communication to writing. No more phone calls unless you summarize in an email right after. 2. Inspect and document. Photos, dates, professional reports if needed. 3. Require evidence if they are making medical claims. You are not denying their experience. You are asking for the facts you need to respond properly. And if your property is well maintained with a clean repair log, scam attempts do not stick well. Paper trails beat stories. Scam 8. Deposit, advance, and use it as last month rent. This is a classic end of lease move. Tenant says they need their deposit back early to secure their next place. Or they say they are going to use the deposit as last month rent. Here is the problem. The deposit is your leverage. It protects you from unpaid rent and damages. If you give it back early and they trash the place, you are stuck. The system layer. Deposit only after move out and inspection. My rule is simple. I do not release the deposit until the tenant has fully moved out, keys returned, and I have inspected. And I set expectations early. At move-in, I explain how move-out works. Then 30 to 90 days before move-out, I send written instructions again. That prevents last-minute negotiation. Scam 9. Overpayment trap. This one is slick. Tenant sends too much money, then immediately demands you refund the difference. You refund it because you think it is a mistake. Then the original payment gets canceled or reversed because it was pending. Now you are out real money. The system layer. No refunds until cleared funds are verified final. Any overpayment gets handled only after the original funds are cleared and confirmed final. No exceptions. Not because you are heartless. Because this is one of the easiest scams to run on a landlord who is trying to be nice. Scam 10. Unauthorized subletting, rental arbitrage, and the Airbnb behind your back move. Here's what this looks like in real life. You meet a tenant named Jake. He seems normal. Good job. Clean application. He signs a 1-year lease and tells you he is excited to live there. 2 weeks later, your neighbor texts you, "Hey, why are different people dragging suitcases in and out every weekend?" You check the cameras outside, or you just drive by and notice it too. New cars, new faces, every few days. People you have never met. What happened is simple. Jake never planned to live there. He rented your place like he was going to be the tenant, then turned around and listed it on Airbnb. So now your long-term rental is basically a mini hotel, and you are the one holding the risk. If someone throws a party and damages the house, you are dealing with it. If a guest gets hurt, guess whose insurance gets dragged into it? If the HOA or the city cracks down on short-term rentals, you are the owner on record. And if something goes really wrong, the people inside your property never signed your lease, never agreed to your rules, and you have no direct control over them. Sometimes it is not even Airbnb. Sometimes the approved tenant moves in for a week, then quietly swaps themselves out for a cousin, a friend, or someone with a record who would never pass your screening. On paper, you think you rented to one person. In reality, you handed the keys to a revolving door of strangers. Put a clear no subletting and no assignment clause in your lease. Then, when you sign the lease, you say it out loud. I do not allow subletting or arbitrage. You agree. You will be the occupant. When you say it out loud, it becomes harder for them to pretend ignorance later. Also, pay attention to early signals. Unusual traffic. Neighbors mentioning constant turnover. Lots of luggage and short stays. You do not need paranoia. You need awareness. Scam 11. Unauthorized roommates and surprise households. This one is common and it can get ugly fast. A single person signs the lease. Then a week later, you notice 3 cars. Then you see furniture moving in. Then you see cribs. Then suddenly it is a whole household. Some landlords say, if rent is paid, I do not care. Here is why you should care. More occupants means more wear and tear, more liability, and people not on the lease are not bound by your rules. Also, if the original tenant leaves, now who is responsible? Documentation systems. Win in court before court. If you want to protect yourself, assume this. Every email you send might be read by a judge, so write like that. Follow-up conversations in writing. Do a detailed move in the walkthrough video before keys. Document condition. Document repairs. Document inspections. Document notices. And do not rely on memory. Memory loses to paperwork. Payment systems. What actually works now? A lot of people get stuck arguing about payment methods. Here's the practical truth. No payment method is magic. Your policy is what makes it safe. The safest rule is always the same. Move-in funds must be verified final before keys. After move-in, use a system that requires exact amounts, creates a clean ledger, shows timestamps, reduces, he said, she said. If your payment method creates confusion, scammers will use the confusion. Make it boring. Boring is profitable. Utilities sound boring until they turn into a surprise bill, a frozen pipe, or a tenant who never put anything in their name. You basically have two main setups, and each one has real pros and cons. Option 1. Utilities in the tenant's name. This is the classic setup. They call the utility companies, switch everything over, and they pay the bills directly. Advantages. Less hassle for you month to month. You are not fronting their bills. If they overuse electric or water, it is their problem, not yours. Cleaner separation between owner and tenant responsibilities. Disadvantages. Some tenants delay the transfer and drag their feet. If they never switch it, you can get stuck paying if it stayed in your name. If they shut it off or let it lapse, you can end up with frozen pipes, mold, or property damage. In some areas, water and sewer charges can still come back on the property, so you need to know local rules. Best for single-family homes, long-term tenants, places where utility shutoffs are not common, and tenants with strong screening. Option 2. Utilities stay in your name. Tenant reimburses you. You keep the accounts active and the tenant pays you back as part of rent or a separate bill. Advantages. No shutoff risk because you control the account. Easier between tenants, no start-stop each time. You can monitor usage patterns and catch problems early. If usage spikes, it can reveal a leak, an extra roommate, or someone running a business out of the unit. Disadvantages. More admin work for you, tracking bills and reimbursements. More room for disputes if they argue about usage or pricing. If they do not pay, you are chasing utilities plus rent. In some areas, bundling utilities can trigger extra legal rules depending on how you structure the lease. Best for multi-unit properties, shared meters, areas with harsh winters, or landlords who want tighter control and cleaner turnover. The universal rule that matters either way. Pick one policy. Put it in writing. Repeat it before move-in. Enforce it consistently, and monitor the basics. If the water bill suddenly jumps, that is either a leak or extra people. If electric usage spikes, it could be a space heater situation, a business setup, or a problem appliance. You are not trying to spy on tenants. You are trying to catch expensive problems early, while they are still cheap to fix. Why landlords quit, and why some thrive. A lot of landlords in my school community basically said, "This business makes you hate people. It is not worth the stress." I sold my rentals and bought REITs or stocks. I moved my money into T-bills. I am done. I get it. Rentals are not just a numbers game. They are a temperament game. If conflict wrecks your mental health, you have to price that. But some landlords thrive, and their stories sound like this. I screen hard. I buy properties I would live in. I rent to stable households. I run systems. I document everything. My tenants paid off my mortgages. So the difference is not whether tenants are good or bad. The difference is whether you operate like a business or hope like a hobby. Here's the one rule that prevents most losses. Verify. Document. Enforce. And here's the practical playbook behind it. Pre-screen before showings. Run checks yourself or through a trusted provider. Never accept tenant-supplied reports as proof. Require verified cleared move in funds before keys. Require utilities transferred or verified scheduled before keys. Use a lease that covers animals, occupants, subletting, and payment rules. Move everything important to writing. Do move in and move out documentation. Enforce your timeline calmly and consistently. When you do this, scammers move on. They look for easier targets. And good tenants respect you more, because good tenants love clarity. If you made it this far, you now know the biggest tenant scams landlords face and how to stop them. But the bigger win is this. You now understand how to run a system that keeps your rentals calm, cash flowing, and protected. If you found this helpful, subscribe, comment on the scam you have seen, and watch the next video on how I keep my units rented even in slow markets. Until next time, keep building your wealth, brick by brick.